Hello, welcome to our webinar series in October. This is the first webinar that we'll have this month with two to follow. Our webinar next week, next Monday on October 17th, same time, 7 p.m. is on social emotional learning, and it's going to be presented by one of our incredible parents. And the following Monday, Neil from Mindprint is going to do a webinar on the learning processes that you'll see the results of when you take the Mindprint learning diagnostic when your child does. And he's just going to give us a little deeper dive into those different learning processes and areas, what those look like, and how to support your learner in their strengths, as well as how to support them in their areas to grow. But tonight, our webinar is titled, Our Brains Are Not Wired to Read. My name is Kayla Flores, and I'm very grateful to be here tonight as the Executive Director at La Jolla Learning. So a little background on myself. That top left-hand picture is a picture of the Flores Five, myself with my three amazing boys and my husband. Mateo in the number 90 jersey. He's my oldest. He's now in 8th grade. Sam is right next to him. He's now in 7th grade. And Manny is the little guy in the front, and he is now in 1st grade. That picture was taken several years ago, so it's crazy to see how much they've grown in just a couple of years. And then also to my right is my husband, who is also in the education field and has been a baseball coach for nearly 20 years. And then the picture on the right is one of my favorites. It's Sam and Manny and myself. And this picture was taken just for a post that I created on Dave Pickley, who's the author of Captain Underpants, and just his struggles as a student and how he overcame them, and is now a creator of these amazing books that many children and adults love to read. So prior to being the executive director at La Jolla Learning, I have over a decade and a half experience as a special education teacher. And during that time, my son, Sam, who is my middle guy, he was identified with dyslexia in 2nd grade. And despite my experience as a teacher and my education, as I was going through the program to become a certified teacher in both special education and elementary education, even with all of my experience and my background, my knowledge background, I just wasn't sure exactly how to help Sam best. I've heard of dyslexia at that point in time, did not know a whole lot about it, was not taught how to teach a child how to read phonetically. And so I just saw him. I saw him as my son, and I saw him as being the brilliant, brilliant, brilliant soul that he is, and was just really confused by when you spoke to him, his vocabulary is off the charts. He is a great storyteller. Has a phenomenal personality. He is just so smart. You can tell in speaking with him. But the second you would put that text in front of him or you would ask him to spell something, he would just shut down. This wall would come up, and it was just really hard for him. And it was hard for me to see him as his mom. I wanted to play this video for everyone, not necessarily because it has anything to do with the brain, although that's our topic of tonight, but I wanted just to play it so that you could just see Sam in action. This was taken several years ago for an amazing school that he used to attend. And it's him and I talking about a breathing technique that we taught him just because a learning disability, and in this case, dyslexia, can have such an emotional impact on our students. And so we really had to not only work on remediating Sam's reading and spelling abilities, but also just really working on him loving himself. So I wanted to share this quickly, and then we will dive into the content for tonight.
Hi everyone, I'm here with my son Sam, and 3 years ago Sam was diagnosed with dyslexia. And so actually just a few days ago he came home from school, and we recently have introduced just some different breathing strategies to him. When he's feeling how he's feeling sometimes. So I wanted him to just talk to you guys about that conversation that we had, and then he's actually going to show you guys one of the deep breathing exercises that he learned.
Stressed out sometimes because whenever like I can't read a word or like I'm stuck on a problem on a test, it gets me really frustrated and I can't think. And then like when I start like writing the same problem sometimes and I don't know about it, and it gets me really frustrated. And sometimes I feel like I'm different from everyone because I tried reading a word and then I had to ask people and they already know the word. Even though it's a really simple word, I forget the word, how to spell it, and then I have to ask someone. And then seeing how it's so simple, I feel like I'm different from everyone.
I understand how that could be frustrating, right? Yeah. But being different, you've learned what? Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
A good thing.
Yeah, right? You have like your own superpower that makes you different from a lot of other people. And you know that each time you work through something that's really hard, your brain's getting stronger and stronger, right? All right. Thanks for sharing that. You're brave. Love you. So now we're talking about some deep breathing strategies, and you've known about deep breathing strategies for a long time, right? But I found a really cool one, right, that I taught you because it has to deal with Star Wars, and Sam's a huge Star Wars fan. I'm gonna do it again, and I'm gonna talk you through the steps that he's doing, so do it loud so that they can hear you. So 3 seconds like you're sucking through a straw. Hold it for 3 seconds, then out for 3 seconds. Sounds just like Darth Vader, right?
That is my Sam, and his journey is what led me here and is what makes me so excited because I see him on the other side, and I'm so happy for him, and I just want that for every child.
Hi everyone, I'm here with
Sorry. All right. So why is reading easy for some but really hard for others? So I want you just to take a few seconds and kind of ponder upon that. Why is reading easy for some but really hard for others? So the reason is because our brains are not hardwired to read. Spoken language is innate, it's instinctive. Language does not have to be taught unless there is a medical condition. All that is necessary is for humans to be exposed to their mother tongue. So if you think about what I just said right now, unless there is an outlying condition, our brains are wired to communicate, and really that doesn't have to be specifically taught. It just naturally happens. Everyone speaks, but not everyone reads. So through neural circuitry deep within our brains, a specialized phonological module automatically assembles the phonemes, also known as sounds, into words for the speaker and disassembles the spoken words back into its underlying phonemes for the listener. Thus, spoken language, which takes place at a preconscious level, is effortless. So kind of just like breathing, we don't have to tell our body what to do, it just naturally does that. It's the exact same thing for speaking. There's a lot that's happening in regards to when we are speaking and hearing someone speak, that assembly and taking apart those phonemes with each and every word. So understanding language. If you can think of it like this, just as proteins must be first broken down into their underlying amino acids before they can be digested, words must first be broken down into their underlying phonemes before they can be processed by the language system. Pretty impressive, right? Our brain is an incredible thing, and just language itself and the ability to speak and understand what someone is speaking is just a very complex process. But again, it comes very naturally to most. Our brains are wired for it. Once the sound is safely past the hearing machinery, the language system takes over, immediately recognizing the phonemes as particles of language and processing them accordingly. So reading is the converse of speaking. In reading, we begin with the intact printed word on the page first, and then have to go from there. So I wanted to show these visuals because I felt like it really gave me a better understanding when we're looking at speaking versus reading. So a speaker retrieves and then orders the phonemes to make a word. So you'll see that on the left-hand side. So he receives the phonemes, orders them, and then that creates the word. That's in speaking when you're hearing someone speak. When we're attempting to read something, to read, we begin with the whole word intact, and then we convert the letters into sounds or phonemes. So you can see how they're the opposite. In understanding speech, the whole word is how we end, and in reading, the whole word is how we begin. So sometimes with children, adults, this is definitely a common characteristic among dyslexic individuals, is they will swap out words that, not that the meaning is a confusion to them, but it's a phonological based issue, not a comprehension issue. So for example, you might hear, a child say, "Mom, it's not heat, it's the humanity." So obviously that child was trying to say humidity. He knew what he meant. He was relating it to heat. But that's how we know that it's not a comprehension issue, it's a phonological issue. So the profound differences that distinguishes reading from speaking, reading and writing are relatively recent human accomplishments. Man has had a written language for only about 5,000 years. Reading is not built into our genes. There is no reading module wired into the brain. So I just spoke about how that language system is there. That is not the case for reading. We don't have a module in our brain dedicated to just reading, unlike speaking and listening does. And this kind of blew my mind as I came across this stat first and was really an eye opener for me. Just opened my eyes into how new the written language is. You know, it was only developed about 5,000 years ago. So, again, for a skill that a lot of times we think just comes naturally to everyone, didn't exist for all that long. So, the very first discovery a child makes on his way to reading is the realization that spoken words have parts. But why? If reading is the converse of speaking, we just spoke about, why is reading dependent upon language? So if reading is the reverse or opposite of speaking, why is reading dependent upon language? I want you to think about that and just keep a pin there. We're going to come back to it. So I want you to think of written language, which is text, as a code. There is no neurological systems in place specifically for reading and writing, but there are ones for speech and language. So, because we do not have these neurological systems in place, readers have to break the code, the phonetic code, but how do they do that? So a reader's job is to convert the letters to their sounds and to appreciate that the words are composed of smaller segments or phonemes. So let's talk a little bit more about that and what that looks like. And this is how readers do break that written code is, again, they convert the letters to their sounds, and they understand and appreciate that words are composed of smaller segments or phonemes. When a child learns that the word he hears comes apart into smaller pieces of sound, he has developed phonemic awareness. And once that happens, now he can attach individual sounds to written letters. So that's it. This is how readers break the this is how readers break the phonetic code. So we have spoken words segmented into sounds, and then those sounds can be attached to letters. Letters linked to phonemes are no longer meaningless marks on the page, but have been transformed into language. So that is how, when a child starts to understand that words are broken up into individual parts or sounds, that is our first recognition that they're beginning to understand this process. Okay, so now we know our brains weren't wired to read, right? They were wired for language, for us to communicate. But this still doesn't explain why my smart, creative, and fully capable son struggled to read and spell. Why do some smart people struggle to read? 70 to 80% of American children learn how to transform printed symbols into a phonetic code without much difficulty. Okay, so 70 to 80% of American children without much difficulty will learn how to read. All right. So no matter the approach that is taken, they will make that reading transition and that reading process fairly easily. But what about the 30 to 20% that are missing? These are the individuals that are dyslexic, that have a reading disability. Dyslexia. So, an unexpected difficulty learning to read despite intelligence, motivation, and education. Right? So, I want you to think about that. It's an unexpected difficulty. If you go back to the beginning slides with me, and I was speaking to you about when you interact with Sam in a conversation, his vocabulary, his charisma, his storytelling, it's just amazing. He's just a really fun kid to speak with. Um, so you would think in just speaking with him that reading and spelling and learning in general comes easily to him, but that's not the case. So this is an unexpected difficulty. Despite intelligence, it doesn't matter. Your ability to read and spell does not determine how bright you are, does not determine your intelligence or your cognitive level. Motivation. In fact, a lot of individuals with dyslexia are very motivated to learn. And education. You can be in the top school in the nation, but if it's not delivered in a way that it needs to be delivered for you to learn how to read and spell, it could still be difficult. So here is a neural signature of dyslexia. The scan on the left is the brain of a child when reading who does not have dyslexia. The one on the right is the scan of the brain while a child with dyslexia is reading. What do you notice? So for non-dyslexic readers, the process runs a pretty straight path on the left side of their brain, known for reading and language, that left side, and through the temporal lobe that is responsible for speech and hearing, to the occipital lobe that controls memory. Now, for our dyslexic readers, you'll notice that that's not the case. So dyslexic children and adults turn to an alternate compensatory reading systems. They take a secondary pathway to reading. Dyslexics are using other auxiliary systems for reading, ones located on the right side and also in the front of the brain on the left. So instead of them going straight back the left side of their brain to access that reading system, they go across the front and back the right side of their brain. So this is a very functioning system, but it's not an automatic one. That explains a lot when you're working with a child who has dyslexia and they're, very slow to the process of reading. They maybe recognize a word one day and not the next, or one line and not the next line. It's not that they can't read. Some of them definitely, some of the individuals definitely come to the table with the ability to read some words. It's just very inconsistent and it's not automatic. The dysfunction in the left posterior system prevents rapid automatic word recognition. The development of the right side frontal and posterior, as well as the left frontal systems, allows for accurate but slow and labored reading. So I hear that a lot, that some adults don't believe that their child has a reading disability, that their child has dyslexia because they're able to read. But it's not just about the accuracy and being able to read. Truly look at the effort that's being exhausted while they're reading. Um, and these dyslexic readers have to rely on manual rather than an automatic system for reading. What is dyslexia? So dyslexia is a specific learning disability that is neurological in origin. So again, thankfully, these functional MRIs have given us a view into the brain and the activity that's happening during reading. So we're able to see the differences and we're able to understand that this is neurological. It is characterized by difficulties with accurate and or fluent word recognition and by poor spelling and decoding abilities. These difficulties typically result from a deficit in the phonological component of language that is often unexpected in relation to other cognitive abilities and the provision of effective classroom instruction. So I want to go back here really quickly and just point this out. So towards the beginning of our webinar, we talked about how reading relies so much on the spoken language. And we know that that left side of the brain is known for reading and for language, right? And that the back left part of it in the temporal, the temporal lobe, yes, along that left side, that is the area of brain that is all known for language, for speech, and for hearing. So you can see, again, with individuals with dyslexia, it's a neurological based learning disability. And what part of that brain are they not utilizing while they're reading? And it is that language based side. Dyslexia is not a vision problem. There's lots of controversy over this, and I understand why this is easily misunderstood, because a lot of individuals with dyslexia will reverse letters, their B's and their D's, their P's and their Q's, even numbers, their 2's and their 5's, they'll completely reverse words and read them in reverse. But this is not because they're seeing the letters or words backwards. It's actually a linguistic problem, not a visual one. They have difficulty naming the letters, often calling a B a D or reading Saul as was. So again, they're working on a manual system, not an automatic one. And language is, they're not utilizing that language portion of their brain. And so it does not come back to vision. It comes back to it being the root of a language processing issue. Another thing with individuals with dyslexia is that many of them are very, very talented at being able to kind of see things in space, that visual spatial component, and they're able to manipulate and turn around and just really visualize things super well. Sam is an incredible builder with Legos, and I remember one time I asked him, like, how do you do this? Like, how do you make these incredible buildings? And he was like, Mom, it's easy. I just see it from every angle in my brain first, and then I build it. And so a lot of individuals with dyslexia grow up to be architects, engineers because of this gift. And so another possibility of why those reversals are coming into place is that, you know, their strength is on the flip side, their weakness. So because they are so good at flipping around and maneuvering visual images in their mind, that doesn't just stop with those images, it transfers over into everything, including letters. And so, again, you're looking at much different things other than vision. Okay, so now we know that our brains are not wired to read. And now we understand that why reading is so difficult for some and easy for others. And it's that it is neurological. Um, it comes from it comes from a place of um, neurological origin, and it is a language-based learning disability. So I so we have answered those questions, and I want you just to think about, how should your child's life be defined? So dyslexia is a true paradox with weaknesses in concrete, observable tasks like reading and spelling, which are very easily noticed in the classroom, right? In school, on homework, all day long. Their most challenging tasks is what has the spotlight on it and are easily observable to outsiders, their parents, their teachers. However, that same dyslexic child that is struggling in reading and spelling may also have significant strengths in big picture thinking and reasoning, highly sought out attributes in the workforce, but are not easily noticed and are often overlooked in school. An article came out several months ago, and it was written to share that LinkedIn has now added dyslexic thinking as one of the qualities that you can check off for an employer to see. I was super pumped about this. I shared it with my son Sam, and I just thought it was so cool because our outside of the box thinkers that have strengths in a lot of things that are not highlighted within school are so highly sought out in the work field. And so I just want you to think about that. How are you, your child's school, your child, how are they defining these first years of their life? Are they defining it by their high thinking ability, and excellent reasoning skills, or are they defining it by their slow reading and poor spelling? So, how to make an impact, the biggest impact. So, again, you've learned why reading is easy for some and not others, but how do we make an impact on those that, that opposite 20 to 30% that reading does not come to automatically? So definition begins with molding. So first, let's mold this definition. So you might be dyslexic if you read slowly and with much effort, are often the one to solve the problem, can't spell, have messy handwriting, show terrific imagination in your writing, have trouble remembering dates and names, think outside of the box and grasp the big picture, have difficulty retrieving and pronouncing spoken words, have excellent vocabulary and ideas. So again, for a lot of these observable weaknesses, on the flip side of that are some incredible strengths. So let's start to mold that definition of dyslexia. Another way to have an impact is mold your perspective. So whether you're an educator or a parent or another professional in the field, start to mold your perspective. Understand that great minds do not think alike. Dyslexics have a reading impairment, not a thinking impairment. Slow reading does not imply slow thinking. IQ and reading are not linked at all in the case of dyslexics. Dyslexics can have a very high IQ but still struggle to read. That is, they can think quickly and read slowly. Dyslexic are capable of complex things, not in spite of their dyslexia, but because of their dyslexia. So this is really important. It was very important to me as an educator, but also as a parent. There is a place for decodable readers, and they are so important in the remediation process of the reading skills. However, our learners are so bright, they're so intelligent, and they crave the content within their grade level material. So, and they're capable of it. So please do not deny them access of that, whether that's hearing it on audiobook or someone reading it to them or giving them, an extra book to take home because they take that extra time to read and allowing them to do that. Please, please, please just do not deny them of that content because they want to learn. So it's also making the biggest impact is also about molding the child's perspective of themselves. There is an incredible book. It's right there. It's called The Dyslexic Advantage, and it changed my life on so many different levels. But it really was the kickstart to where I am today, and really what ignited this already, I was already a very passionate educator, but then paired with my mama bear, then reading this book and understanding truly the incredible strengths that individuals with dyslexia have, I just knew that this was my path. And I will tell you, since reading this book and understanding these characteristics and strengths, it has helped me become a better educator, but an even better mom to Sam. And being able to teach him about these unique strengths that not the rest of us and his family have has also done wonders for his self-confidence. So the Dyslexic Advantage describes the characteristics that are common among individuals with dyslexia, highlighting their strengths, and they put them in the acronym of MIND. So it stands for material reasoning, interpersonal reasoning, narrative reasoning, and dynamic reasoning. So I highly recommend this book, highly, highly recommend it. And just learning more about these mind strengths so that you're able to recognize them in these individuals. So again, so you're helping to define their life, not based off of their observable weaknesses, but on these incredible strengths. And the last impact I want to talk about is just molding your focus, follow the proven evidence. So this is Scarborough's reading rope. It was developed in 2001. And what this shows us is that in order to be a skilled reader, you have to have fluent execution and coordination of word recognition and text comprehension. So those things go hand in hand. Not one, so skilled reading cannot happen until they both exist. Oral language and just speaking, again, those things that come very easily are often strengths of individuals with dyslexia. If we go back again to that strength, these strengths, you can see the N, narrative reasoning. Um, that's their ability to story tell, their personal memories, to recount memories and experiences that they've had with vivid detail, scene creation. So many individuals with dyslexia are authors despite their struggles with spelling, just because they have this great narrative reasoning strength. And so this language comprehension component really comes very naturally to individuals with dyslexia. You'll often hear people say they can't, they're not able to read this text when you put it in front of them, but if you read it out loud to them, they can pretty much retell word for word what the text was about. Again, like just that incredible vocabulary knowledge. Their verbal reasoning is often high, and that's our ability to comprehend what is being given to us through verbal means. Um, but again, to be a skilled reader, you need not only the language comprehension, but also the word recognition. And this is where we're focusing today, because this is really what makes reading hard for some. Um, and under word recognition, you'll see there's phonological awareness, decoding and spelling, and then sight recognition. So that just automatic being able to see a word and reading it. So how do we remediate? How do we work on this word recognition? The way we work on this is through a structured literacy approach, okay? This is the answer. Structured literacy is a explicit, systematic phonics instruction that is essential for many and beneficial for all. So you can teach most individuals to read using this structured literacy approach, but it is absolutely essential for individuals with dyslexia. Structured literacy is an umbrella term used for this phonics instruction that contains these 6 elements within structured literacy. Structured literacy does, again, it is an umbrella term. So within this is, the Orton-Gillingham methods. This structured literacy encompasses all of that. But you'll see, again, elements of structured literacy. We have phonology there. We have that sound symbol relationships, syllable instruction, morphology, syntax, and semantics. So the principles of structured literacy. Instruction is systematic and cumulative. So they're organized in a logical way. We begin with the easiest concepts and skills and then progress to more difficult ones. And each lesson builds upon previously learned concepts. So we're constantly spiraling in, and those concrete skills we build from the beginning, we build upon them. Instruction is explicit. So teaching is direct, intentional, and interactive. Learning is not implicit or assumed. And we make it multisensory because we know that anytime we can light up, that's what I always tell my students, we're lighting up all those different parts of our brain. But anytime we can utilize those different parts of our brain while learning a task, it makes it easier to learn and also easier to retain. Structured literacy is teaching an individual the rules behind the English language. So why do we read words the way that we read them, and why do we spell them the way that we spell them? And these rules are explicitly taught, so there's no guessing at anything. A lot of our individuals that we work with come to us where they rely heavily on guessing. They look at the first sound, maybe, the end of the word, they understand the context, and so they just, you know, they guess on that word. I shouldn't say they guess. They pull that word um, to best match the situation. A guided reading approach is not beneficial for individuals with dyslexia, because a lot of times within guided reading, we're teaching kids to look at the picture, think about the context, look at the first sound. It really is teaching kids to rely on those things and maybe take their best guess if they don't know how to read a word, where these are those very explicit rules that we're teaching. And instruction is diagnostic. So the assessment is ongoing, both formal and informal, and teachers look for automaticity. We're constantly collecting data and using that to build on our students' areas of struggle. So if we don't work on them, they're not going to get better. And we know through growth mindset that we can get better at any task that we want to get better at. We have to work on it. And so by really identifying and keeping data and building intentional instruction off of those diagnostic tests, it allows us to really target those trouble spots and incorporate them within our sessions. And we look for automaticity. So, and the way to mold these skills is within structured literacy, which would be that remediation component, and also accommodations that can be offered in the general education classroom. Orton Gillingham methods, which falls underneath that structured literacy title, is the gold standard in remediation. And that's where La Jolla Learning and educational therapy can help. I also don't want to end without emphasizing the importance of accommodations within the classroom. Remember, we spoke about how bright, how intelligent our learners are, and slow reading does not equal slow thinking. And so again, they crave that grade level content. So through accommodations, that's what makes that content accessible to them. And I want to leave you tonight with this little line below. A student who fails to read adequately in first grade has a 90% probability of reading poorly in fourth grade and a 75% probability of reading poorly in high school. So the earlier we can start this remediation, the better. At the same time, don't ever feel like it's too late, because it definitely, absolutely is not. Thank you so much for your time tonight. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to me. Again, my name is Kayla Flores. And if you have questions or want to learn more about our structured literacy program that we use at La Jolla Learning, what that looks like, please reach out to us, and I would love to meet. We do free consultations where I speak with parents individually via Zoom at no charge, so that I can learn more about your child, and then we can talk about, what things we can put into place to help. Again, thank you so much for your time tonight.